Hey y'all, welcome back to Andy's Little Homestead. A few months ago, I tried to put tar paper on the house and, well, this is what it looks like now. 6 weeks after me and my wife met, she got pregnant. What do these two things have in common? Me not being very good at wrapping 4 inches of wood. But regardless, we still got to get it done. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get these walls wrapped up, and then I'm going to talk about the different types of underlayment that you use on a house, some of the benefits and drawbacks of different ones. And by the end of it, you'll be wrapping wood like a champ. I've actually got a pretty unique material that we're going to use for this, so it should be fun. I reckon we'll get started. I think battery's dead. All right, so let's talk about the hardware that's used to install any underlayment that you're putting on a house. The simplest and cheapest option is just staples. They get installed with what's called a hammer tacker or a slap stapler. It's pretty quick, it's pretty easy. You just pop right on down the line, but it's not gonna have the same kind of wind resistance if you're leaving it wrapped and outside for a long time. The next and probably most secure way is these little guys right here. They're called cap nails or button caps is what we always call them. It's just a ring shank nail with a plastic collar. The plastic helps grab a larger surface area of that underlayment. And also it makes a seal around the tar paper or whatever underlayment you got, so that rain running downhill won't get into where you nailed. The main drawback of using the button caps is that it's a little bit slow. Now it can speed up if you get yourself a magnetic roofing hatchet. I've got one, but it's nowhere near as fast as this. This is called a stinger. I'm sure it's got an official name, but I always just call it a stinger. And I think it's a good combination of the slap stapler and the button caps. It's got strips of long staples that'll hold better than the standard ones. It comes with a roll of caps that goes in there. Staples right through the caps. So you've got waterproof, you've got a large surface area grab, and it's quick. It's hard to see with the snow, but I actually use button caps up on the roof because the staples on the stinger are 1.25 inches, and I didn't want them poking through on the bottom. But if you want it to go quick, and especially if you're working by yourself, I highly recommend these. And they actually have a manual version too that you just slap down by hand. All right, so we got the first sheet up. Some places do actually have codes as to the spacing on the button caps themselves, so make sure you read those before you ignore them. We're gonna move on to the next sheet. So what's important to do whenever you're moving from one to the next is you wanna make sure that you have plenty of overlap. I like to go at least a foot, especially on these longer ones like that. The smaller rolls like that go up on the roof, they're 4 feet wide. They only need like a 6-inch vertical overlap and a 2-inch horizontal. You can't go wrong with putting a little more up because water is able to travel down and then work its way in that seam. Or if you really want to solve the problem, just tape it. You can use Tyvek tape, zip tape. If it sticks on there, it'll probably work. All right, well, we got our house wrapped up in a body bag, it looks like. I still got to get those spots up there, but we're going to go ahead and go inside and cut out the windows. We'll get everything trimmed up around the bottom too. Got to get back inside. I am out of shape. It's like being born in reverse. Sorry if it's a little loud. Gotta keep the generator running. So this is the same whether you're using tar paper, Tyvek, whatever kind of underlayment you got. What you're basically doing is going straight over the walls, windows, every opening, don't worry about it. And then once you got it on there, just cut a big old X in the window. Then from there, you just take your little dangly flappy flaps, wrap them over the sill and the jack stud, nail it off. Now personally, I like to do all 4 sides of it wrapped, but what some people will do is they'll actually leave this top section hanging down, and then that way they can put it over top of the flange on the window that goes in. I'll get into that when I do the window install. Me personally, I just tape the seam and I've never had a problem with it. Though I'm sure the Facebook Department of Inspections has something to say about that. Anyway, we're gonna get the rest of these cut out and then we're gonna talk about different types of underlayment and just what the hell it is that I used in here. So all underlayment basically falls into one of 2 categories. You've got tar paper, which is technically asphalt felt, but everybody just calls it tar paper. And then you've got synthetics. This is a synthetic. This is what I have up on the roof. It's just a woven fabric. They've got, they actually kind of fuzzy up the edges for a little bit of grip, which is good for working on the roof. And it's got spots that tells you where to nail that you can ultimately ignore. And the second option is what we put up originally. It was tar paper. Now synthetic has some distinct advantages. You get more on a roll. You actually get 10 squares or 1,000 square foot on a single roll of synthetic versus only 2 squares on a roll of 30-pound tar paper. It holds up better to wind, you know, and things like that before you get the siding on, obviously. My biggest criticism of synthetic, and this is purely from what I've seen, is if you live in a very humid area, this stuff does not breathe. So I've worked on quite a few houses where you ended up having condensation on the back side of like Tyvek or Typar. I'm not huge fans of them, but in an area like this, it's actually pretty dry, so it's not that big of a concern. The flip side of that is down south, I worked on plenty of houses that had 30-pound tar paper that was, you know, bad siding and it was clearly leaking, but it had held up for 100 years. So it's a give and take with all of them. Regardless, getting it installed properly is more important than what you pick. So don't overthink it. That's wonderful, Andy. Thank you for your education on underlayments, but you didn't use any of those. No, I used old billboards. As part of the trade for the SkyTrack that I got rid of earlier in the year, my buddy Bill gave me a bunch of old billboard vinyls. So now we're representing all kinds of businesses. We got some insurance, there's a restaurant behind me, and then the urology one ended up where the bathroom's going, and I didn't plan this, but this guy's gonna hang out in the corner behind the wall. Someday, 75 years in the future, my grandkids are gonna remodel this place, and when they take the boards off the walls, they're gonna see that guy. I probably won't be around for it, but that's gonna be a good joke that I can pass on to future generations. Now you may be asking yourself, Andy, that's wonderful, but will it work? Well, the underlayment does one thing. It's just a secondary drainage plane. I don't care how new your house is, your siding leaks. All of it. 100%. I've torn a lot of siding off of houses and every single one of them had water getting behind it. So this is a single piece from top to bottom. There's no horizontal seams for anything to get in. It's a synthetic woven fabric, but it's thicker than Tyvek or Typar. Most importantly, I didn't pay for it. That's something we can all get behind. Me personally, I like tar paper. That's why I put tar paper up the first time. What I didn't plan on was the amount of time it was gonna take before we got into siding. But this, well, I'm pretty happy with this. It's mildly ridiculous, but I wouldn't have it any other way. As always, I hope y'all enjoyed and I hope you learned something. I love you and God bless. The simplest and cheapest option. Underlayment. It's really cold out. And also it makes a